Welcome to the Glen and Ann Show.
Hello, world. Happy New Year, and welcome back to the Glen Alex Show. Hi, I'm Glen Alex, licensed clinical social worker, the wealth counselor, wisdom app top mentor, and author of Living in Total Health, the 2021 Indie Book Award winner for health and wellness, and finalist in the Mind, Body, Spirit category. My life's work is about total health, and I am on a mission to help as many people as I can to be joyful, connected, confident, and complete. The life experience we call wealth, WELLTH, which is health plus other riches. And I am convinced that people in pursuit of and living in total health on the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual levels will rid the world of isms and violence in all its forms to make the world a better place for all of us. Please join us on that path. On the Glen Alex Show, we focus on a different aspect of health each episode. And for this episode, I wanted to focus on transformation because it's a new year and everybody's talking about resolutions, which I gave up many, many years ago. So my guests tend to have a product or service, a health product or service that they want to share with the world. I also love having people on who have a health story to share, their own personal journey to help other people who may be in similar situations to see how they can become healthier and better their lives. So I'm real excited about having you on. So I want the audience to help me welcome author Ann Hince to the Glen Alex Show.
Thank you, Glenn. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. Happy New Year.
Thank you. You too.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I heard your story. I checked out your website, and I was just really fascinated by your journey. And like I said in the opening, I think it's really important for people to hear it, to know where you came from and the pain and trauma you were dealing with to what you did about it and where you are now. So just give us a little insight about your life, your story.
Okay, great. So I actually have a mid-Atlantic accent. So I'm from England, but have lived in California for 33 years. And I came out to California and I was a software engineer for a while. And, I had a lot of trauma in childhood. I think a lot of us have trauma in childhood. We deal with it differently. So I was adopted. Both my parents were alcoholics. And when I was 19, I walked into the bathroom one morning and found my mother dead on the bathroom floor. So that was a huge trauma. I moved out here when I was 21. So I was still dealing with the trauma, but I didn't know what to do about it. I had no idea how to work through something like that.
Right.
And so I didn't. I just suppressed it all. So it wasn't until I was in my mid-30s, and then I was a stay-at-home mother with 2 young boys. And I went to a doctor's appointment and he asked me what my stress level was because he could tell that it was more than it should be, even in that situation, which is not always easy. And it was an 8 out of 10. And he asked me why. And I knew straight away because the tears from that event 2 decades earlier was still just under the surface. So he worked with me with this technique. It's called EFT. It's short for emotional freedom technique. It's a little strange, but he worked with me for about 15 minutes. And I walked away from that appointment being able to tell the story of her death in my mind without the emotions arising, which was so different.
Okay. That's fascinating. Before we get too much into the EFT, which I do want to cover, you said that we all have trauma, and that's true. We all have childhood wounds, and some of us tend to walk around thinking that other people don't have pain like we do, and everybody's going through something. Everybody has been through something. So what's so powerful about your story is you demonstrate that you don't have to resign yourself to being in pain or being traumatized for the rest of your life. So that's what I love about your story. But if you don't mind, could you just I can't imagine the horror of walking in and seeing your mother dead. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Just give us a little more, tell us a little more about how you reacted to that, how you responded to that, and the burden you carried, if you carried one into your 30s before you met that doctor.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a huge trauma. She did have cancer. So she had throat and lung cancer from drinking and smoking. So she had been pretty sick, but something burst. So it was not a pleasant thing to find in the morning. And I was the only one in the house. My dad was working in Saudi Arabia. My brother was at his girlfriend's house. So it was a huge trauma. I couldn't sleep upstairs for days because I didn't want to go back to that place where it happened. And I had a lot of emotions around it too. I had had an argument with her the night before, and we rarely argued. I didn't normally go out at night. I had gone out that night. And, she walked past my bedroom door on the way to the bathroom. Of course, I never heard her. So I had a lot of guilt there as well. There were a lot of different layers to the emotions that I stored over the years that I just suppressed them. I just let them go into my subconscious mind and I forgot about them. And so it was through this process of working with EFT that the subconscious mind opens up and those memories actually come back, and all those different layers of emotions, they come back to be worked with again. And that's one of the great things about EFT is it works with the emotions, which are really just stuck energy in the body, because those memories don't exist anywhere else outside of me. They're just stored inside of me, and they're there to be released.
Yes, we do we store our emotions in the body. And a lot of people think, well, if I don't think about it, then it's gone. No, it's not. It's just sitting somewhere dormant, waiting for a trigger.
It is. Yes. It's just dis-ease in the body.
It is.
It's actually stored physically in the body.
Okay. Now, so was other than finding your mother dead, was it the layers of guilt and just the if I could have, I would have kind of thing that led to the PTSD that you describe on your website?
Well, that was also my dad, being alcoholic. They were both alcoholics. My dad would drink during the day. As soon as he came back from the pub, fell asleep on the floor. My mum would start drinking. She drank a whole bottle of sherry every day for a long time. So, I was always walking on eggshells because you never knew what was going to happen. You never knew what was true, right? You would hear one thing when they were drunk and then they would change their minds when they were sober. I had a mother that I would leave in the morning who was normal, nice to talk to. One who came when I came home in the evening, she was a totally different person. So it kind of messes with you.
Oh, yes, it does. And if you don't know what kind of environment you're going to walk into or experience from day to day, that's pretty traumatic for a child.
Right. And also, I've got lots of traumas. I could keep talking for a long time. When I was 9, we lived in Hong Kong and we were sent to boarding school in England. And my first boarding school was a boys' boarding school. I was the first girl boarder at a boys' boarding school. And I was teased mercilessly. Of course. So I had that living inside of me too. So I had a lot of things that I could work with. So, being a software engineer, I wanted to know that this technique worked, right? More than this one 15-minute session. So I had a 17-year-old cat at home who needed daily saline shots. And I'd never given shots before, and I hated shots. So the first time I did it, my hand was shaking so much that it was not going to be safe for me to do it every day. So I thought, well, this is a great test case. So I tapped. EFT is also called tapping because we're tapping on different points in the body as we're talking through what it is we're feeling. So I tapped about my fear of hurting the cat, my fear in injections, and my history around injections. And the next day, the needle just slid right in and my hand did not shake at all. So I knew that this technique was pretty powerful. And I started working with it. I started noticing during the day when I felt emotional. And I could feel my mind becoming quiet, which I so wanted because I was really reactionary I just felt like I reacted more than most people, and I didn't want to.
Okay.
So I started working with it, and then I wanted more. So I wrote down all the emotional memories that I could think about from childhood and my earlier life. And I tapped through them one each day, one each night, for about an hour to an hour and a half. And at some point, my mind became so quiet that I realized the words that I had been saying in my mind, the ones that I criticized myself with and judged other people, they had been my dad's words that I had programmed inside of myself, and I just used over and over again. And it wasn't until they were gone that I could look back and see that that was the case. But I had to get beyond in order to look back and see.
Yes. And let me just point out that I've had clients who have these arguments with themselves and are trying to live up to some standard that obviously is unrealistic for them because it doesn't come from them. And they are arguing with their parents, with the belief that they should be the way their parents said they should be. So there's that internal war, that internal struggle that's going on all the time. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because when we try to live up to someone else's standard, it usually doesn't work because it doesn't resonate with our personal truth and who we are.
Right. But we're hearing those words in our minds that we've heard before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And children tend to internalize that stuff. So as adults, thankfully we have the opportunity and the maturity to work through that and work past
noticing it is the first
Yeah.
key thing to do, right? If we notice that we've got these voices going in our head, going back and forth, and that's something that you can tap on. Part of me wants to do this thing and part of me doesn't want to do this thing, right? When we can accept both sides and let the tension behind them, the emotion behind them go, then we can come to peace.
Yes. So you had a session with this doctor, and then after that session, did you started doing some research on it? How far did you go into EFT? Did you study the whole program, or?
I did study it. I mean, it's very easy to learn. You can learn it in 5 minutes, and there are thousands of videos online. I learned from the person who developed it. His name is Gary Craig.
Okay.
And he has videos online, and I recommend those because these days, a lot of the people who are using EFT have moved towards the positive. They're trying to stick the positive into the body, but it's only the negative that is stored in the body. That's what we need to find and release that energy. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in my story, but I can see that it's just the tension that's stored in our body, and that's all we need to focus on. And that's what EFT does. It works on the negative to release it from the body.
Okay. And well, let's talk about it now. I'm glad you brought that up about we do have to deal with the negative. So I describe psychotherapy as peeling off layers of an onion. Okay.
Yep.
And so to get to the core, the root of the problem, and peeling off those different layers is you're just going through stuff. You have to discard some stuff to get to the meat of the issue. So when you say that EFT should be focused on the negative, that's, for me, it sounds like you're peeling off the layers so you can get to the positive or release the positive.
The positive is underneath. The light is already underneath the negative, because at this point I can sense inside my body, and I can. It's the same thing as with my dad's, with those words. When I release the negative, the tension that's stored in the connective tissue, when I release it, I can then see that it was dark and actually it's light underneath. So I know, I have no question in my mind that the light is underneath the darkness, and we're peeling back those layers. And one example from my mother's death, with the peeling back the layers, right? The first things that I worked through with finding her, just the physicality of finding her in the bathroom, and the things I had to go through. Then there's the emotions, the guilt of not hearing her walk by. I had to get through all those first before I remembered, oh, my brother came back with his new girlfriend that I'd never met before. She made me a black cup of coffee, and I didn't like coffee. And if I had it, I liked sugar and milk in it. So that it seems so petty now, like, to hear that. but it was stored underneath all those other layers, was this frustration inside of me that she had done this. So I had to let that go too, right? But that just shows it's a layer by layer process, and it's not necessarily the key part that's underneath. It's just another layer, right? Because that little story there wasn't a big story, but it was hidden underneath the big emotions that I had held inside.
Yes, and from what to be honest with you, I was exposed to EFT years ago. I didn't pursue it, and then I heard you on a podcast and cyber stalked you a little bit, and and so now I'm very intrigued and very interested in it. I did watch one of Gary Craig's videos, and there are some layers there for me with my brother's passing in 2013. I still haven't come to full terms with that because I think he passed too soon. I'm not God, but I think he passed too soon. And I still, to this day, have not been able to read his obituary. I never opened it. So I'm going to do some EFT work around that. I would love for you, though, to walk us through it.
Okay. Yeah, it's very simple. Yeah.
Okay.
And so we could actually use you as an example if you're okay to doing that.
Oh, Lord. Okay. So if I break down.
Okay. Well, it wouldn't be we wouldn't go deep, right? Because right now you've got some resistance to reading his obituary. And that's all we could work on, right? So the first point we use is the karate chop point, which is on the side of our hands, where we would hit a piece of wood if we were doing a karate chop. So we're tapping firm enough that we're making a difference, right? We can feel it. It's not gentle, but it's not hard enough that we're going to hurt ourselves.
Okay.
So this is where we say our opening statement. And I've changed it slightly from what Gary Craig did originally because I found it had resistance in it for people. So I would say something like, even though I have some resistance to reading my brother's obituary, that's my truth in this moment. And it's okay that I have this resistance.
Okay. So you want me to say that?
I do.
I'll try to remember it.
I can say it with you, even though I have some resistance.
Even though I have some resistance.
About reading my brother's obituary.
About reading my brother's obituary.
This is my truth in the moment.
This is my truth in the moment.
And it's okay that I have this resistance.
And it's okay that I have this resistance.
So you would say that 3 times. We won't say it 3 times because I think we kind of got it there. Okay, so then the next point is right on the top of the head, the crown point.
Okay.
And you would just say this resistance.
This resistance.
Yeah, tapping firmly about 5 to 7 times.
Okay.
And then the next point is the beginning of the eyebrows. This resistance.
This resistance.
The next point is the bone on the edge of the eye. This resistance.
This resistance.
The next point is the bone under the eye. This resistance.
This resistance.
And you can say a little bit more, maybe this resistance about reading my brother's obituary.
This resistance about reading my brother's obituary.
Next point is under the nose on the upper lip. This resistance.
This resistance.
Next point is on the chin. This resistance.
This resistance.
The next point is the collarbone point. Kind of the collarbone goes across and down, and kind of underneath there's like a little dimple. So you're just tapping on there. You can just tap all over the collarbone and you'll get to the point. This resistance.
This resistance.
And then the last point is about 3 to 4 inches under the armpit where your bra strap goes across. This resistance.
This resistance.
And then you take a deep breath. Then you think about the resistance again. You think about his obituary again. And does it feel like it might be a little easier to read it? Or did something else come up?
It feels like I need a good cry before I can analyze what's going on.
Okay. So then you could either let yourself have a cry or you could tap on, even though I feel like I need to have a good cry before I read his obituary. That's my truth in this moment. It's okay that I want to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're finding your truth at each moment, in each layer, right? You're allowing your truth to be okay. And that releases it.
Yeah, self-acceptance is huge in any healing process. You always have to start where you are.
Yeah.
can't
And you
start
don't
over.
want to change it, right? The goal is not to change it. Although in the back of the head, we want it to change, we want it to release. But in the moment, we're just fully accepting whatever it is we're feeling right now.
Okay. All right. That's pretty powerful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So can you explain why those points and how tapping those points will make the energetic shifts?
There's specific points, so the ends of meridian points. So it's a little bit like acupressure.
Okay.
And the tapping somehow gets into our normal, it gets into that energetic response as we're bringing that thought to mind or the emotion to mind, and it just somehow releases it. I don't think there's any clear knowledge yet on how it does it. It just works.
And the meridians are energetic pathways in the body.
Yes.
Okay.
So with my experience further along my path, I happen to know that it's the connective tissue that it's working through. That's where our emotions are stored. In my experience, there might be other people who say differently, but from my experience, it's stored in the connective tissue, which is throughout the body. So those paths are somehow, they're connected in because it's all connected. The connective tissue is all connected.
That's clear. So when you talked about the light earlier, when you're peeling off those layers and you get to the light, do you actually feel more buoyant in your body, in your being?
Yes, well, there's light. There's different levels of light, right? Yes, there's actually the sunshine light.
Yes.
That is the light that's underneath. But as we also let go of this baggage that we've carried for all these years, you actually feel lighter. Yeah, I remember feeling so heavy for so many years. Not physically heavy, just a heavy weight. Yes, and it's really nice to feel light and to feel buoyant and joyous. I mean, I laugh easily. I go to the theater these days, the cinema, and I'm laughing. I'm sometimes the only one in the theater laughing because it's just so easy, right? It's not stuck down behind, oh, should I laugh? Should I not? What are people going to think about me? All those thoughts have been released. So it just, definitely lightens you up.
Okay. Well, I can clearly see the impact EFT has had on your life, and it's awesome. Are you working with other people to work out their issues, teaching, or you're just writing about it in your story?
Yeah, I mean, this is only the first part of my story. Shall I continue and say a little bit more?
Well, yeah, you can in a minute, but are you working with other people?
I am working with some people individually because sometimes they like to have the words. Sometimes they can't find the words themselves to tap with, and they like to have someone else who can tune into the words to use. So yes, I do that a little bit.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. What's the rest of the story?
Okay. So I wanted more again. So it's an expansion of awareness that I realized I didn't know what awareness meant when I started this journey, but I became aware of my emotions, but underneath emotions are physical sensations. And I became aware of the physical sensations underneath the emotions. So every emotion, think of fear, that has some physical sensations inside of us. We're holding ourselves tight somewhere in our body. So I started to work at that level, which is a deeper level of awareness. And then I didn't feel like I needed EFT so much at this point, although you can use it with the physical sensations. I wanted to actually feel the feelings in the same kind of way, but just put my focused awareness on the feelings, the physical sensations. Okay. And when I did that, they would release in the same way that the emotions felt like they were releasing. So I would bring a thought to mind, or I actually started doing it at the kitchen sink. I'd be thinking about something and realizing
dishes.
It took a long time to get the dishes done. But I'd realize I was thinking an emotional thought. So I would actually hold myself like a statue and feel where those feelings were. Where are those physical sensations? And I'd actually have to hold myself as a statue because I was so trained to suppress them. When I put my awareness on them, they would kind of move away. I couldn't hold my awareness on them unless I held my breath and stayed totally still like a statue. And then I would kind of talk to them. It's like I can feel this tension in my solar plexus. I can feel it right there. And it's okay. It's okay. I just want to feel you. I want to allow you to be. I don't want to change you. I just want you to express out of my body. So I would do that and it would release. I'd have to take a breath and it would release. And then I'd think the thought again, oh, is it still the same? Is the feeling the same, or is it shifted, or is it moved somewhere else? And then I would do the same thing. And I would keep going. That's why the dishes took so long. I'd keep thinking the thought again and again until the emotions had gone from it. And it was wild to me that this actually happened, that it would happen.
Well, okay, so can you give us an example of when you did that, what thought you had and the resident feeling?
Okay, well, let me just take it one step further. So I wanted to do this more. So I started at night, instead of tapping, I would lay on the sofa and I would bring collective traumas to mind. So I would think about something like 9/11, right? We all had feelings around that event, some images we saw or stories we heard. So I would bring that to mind. And that was a whole bunch of different feelings inside of me. And if we feel that, right? So if anyone who's listening, bring that memory to mind, can you feel where in the body you've stored some of that energy? And if you can, if you're safe doing this at the moment, then hold yourself like a statue, hold your breath. You don't need to take a deep breath, just hold it where it is and feel that tension inside of you. And maybe just talk to it. Like, say, I can feel you right there in my stomach. I can feel this tension right there. And I can feel you. I just want you to be. I'm going to allow you to be there. And at some point, you will need to take a deep breath and just allow that to happen. And then bring the memory back to mind. Is the tension in the same place? Is it as tight as it was, or has it released a little bit? And then feel it and do the same thing. Just talk to it. Allow it to be, because it wants to release from the body. So it needs attention to do that. And then you'll need to take another deep breath. And I just do the same thing over and over again until that thought no longer has that energy attached to it. And that is freedom.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, thank you for using that example, because not only do we have our own personal traumas, we have collective traumas. Just think of 2020. Everybody was taking hits from everywhere. It was nuts. So I can imagine all of the stored negativity that all of us have in our bodies, and are still collecting because of the pandemic.
Right. And just because it's collective doesn't mean that we don't have we can't take personal responsibility for how we feel about it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that. Wow.
Shall I keep going? There's one more path
yes.
to the story. So at some point I noticed that I could keep my awareness inside the body after I had let this tension go, which I had never heard of before. And I believe that's the original meaning of the word insight. I started to be able to see inside my physical body. And inside, I'm just doing the same thing that I was doing with the emotions, with the EFT, and with the feelings, with the physical sensations. I hold my awareness on the tension. I just allow it to be. And after a few moments, it releases. And then I do it again and again and again. So at some point, I was able to put my awareness inside my head. And I had released enough that I actually could feel and hear the connective tissue release once I had let go of enough energy stored inside of it, which was really weird to hear. It sounds like old fabric ripping. And it took some research to realize that, yes, this is the connective tissue and that's what's happening. So at this point, my whole skull, the bones in my skull have moved more into alignment. There's more work to do. But I also have scoliosis, so my neck is straightening. And this last week, I found that as a 55-year-old, I have grown 1/2 inch.
Oh my gosh.
Which is I think unusual.
I would think so,
I
yes.
didn't know this was possible. So that's part of the reason why I'm sharing my story, right? If we can
Well,
change
that's
the
literally
bones.
you growing.
Yes.
Yes.
Straightening out. Yes. Yeah.
That's amazing. That is really amazing. And I want to add to what you said about just sitting with it and just allowing that feeling to be, because that's what one of the things I teach my clients is when you're having an emotional upset or whatever, sit with it. Allow it to be without judging it, without judging yourself, and it will do what it needs to do, release, or you'll get some insight about why it's there. So I'm really glad to hear you say that, because we try to move past stuff too quickly.
We do.
Too often.
And I don't think we realize, part of this journey has allowed me to realize that though the mental, the emotions, it's all, when we're releasing that, it's all working on the physical. Right?
Yes.
It is connected. It is one and the same. We're just working at a different level of awareness. So absolutely, with your book, you talk about mental health and emotional health and all those things, spiritual health. It is all connected. It's
all
one and the
connected.
same. Yeah.
Yes. It's useful to separate them from time to time for focus, but one definitely affects the other and they affect each other. So
yes,
I'm really glad that you're a living example of that. And thank you for sharing your story with us and wow, I can just imagine how much you benefit the people you do work with the EFT. So what else do you want us to know about you?
I want everyone to know that we can all do this. Like, we're all so separated right now, but all that means is we've got really strong emotions about one side, about one thing that we think we're right on, and about the other side, right? We have emotions around both sides of every issue, and if we work with those feelings and we let that stored energy go, I believe we can all come together in peace.
Oh my goodness.
But it takes responsibility, right? We have to
it takes total responsibility. And I have a conversation with a friend often that it's the individuals create the collective, so the individuals can shift the collective. So absolutely, I'm working on my part, and I encourage everybody else to work on theirs as you are. Oh my gosh, thank you.
You're welcome. We can do it.
And see, you don't have to have a PhD in everything. You don't have to be this super famous person or this high-ranking official to change your own life.
Absolutely. Yes, because I think of the law of attraction. I use that a lot during my journey. It really helped me to realize that we are a signal, and we are emitting a signal, and we're attracting back based on what our signal is right now. So if we change our signal now by becoming more peaceful right now, it might be just taking a breath, or it might be doing some tapping, or it might be feeling the feelings. Right? When we change our signal right now, we're changing our future, because the signal we're emitting has changed. So we're attracting something different back into our future.
Something different, something better, hopefully.
Something more peaceful. I believe we're attracting back to us what it is we're feeling now. The feeling complex that we're feeling right now, that's what we're going to get back to us. So if we're more peaceful right now, we're going to attract more peace back to our future.
Okay. Actually, I'm feeling a little giddy because I'm loving this. I love your story. I love your transformation. I love that it's going to be shared with other people. And even if it positively impacts one person, then that brings me joy. And
me too.
It makes me smile. So I'm not peaceful right now. I'm not calm.
Maybe some more tapping.
Okay. So tell us about your book.
My book is basically my journey. So I talk about that law of attraction, how I believe that we're our signal and how that gets stored in us in childhood. And then I talk about the different steps. You know, the first biggest step was EFT and letting go of those, the obvious traumas, the obvious emotions, and then moving into feeling your feelings, and then moving into insight, being able to actually look inside the body. And I describe that in there too.
Okay. And where is your book available?
It's available on Amazon, or you can ask your bookstore to order it.
Okay. And if anyone wants to learn more about you, your website is
AnnHince.com.
Okay,
Just my
and
name.
that's ANNHINCE
Yes.
.com.
Yes.
.com. Okay. So I hope people do reach out to you. I hope they purchase the book. I hope people just start taking personal responsibility for their emotions and the resolution of their trauma. And EFT sounds like a really great method to that end. And just listen to your wisdom and learn from it.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you for
great.
allowing me to share my story.
Oh my gosh, thank you. So, and I know there's a lot you have to offer, but can you sum up just what you want the world to know in one nugget? What nugget do you want to leave people with?
I would like people to know that they can take responsibility for themselves. And whenever anything outside of us happens, but we're feeling emotions around it, then we have something we can work with.
Okay. We can't control outside of us. We can totally control what we allow to evolve and fester and release within us.
Yes, and then we can come to peace.
Okay. I will be peaceful after I stop smiling in a minute.
Smiling's a good signal to be emitting, though, right? It's only really the negative we want to let go of. So it's all good.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you making time to be on this episode of the Glen Alex Show. And this means the most to me because it is the beginning of the year. So I want people to think transformation, not resolutions.
Perfect.
And you are a perfect example of transforming pain and trauma.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you again for tuning in to the Glen Alex Show. Please like, subscribe, and share.
Refresh your spirit with a nourishing thought.
Please allow me to leave you with this nourishing thought. Wayne Dyer said, transformation literally means going beyond your form. It's January and resolution time. I actually stopped making resolutions many years ago because I realized that I was making empty promises to myself. That did not sit well with me, so I jumped off the resolution train. Resolutions also tend to be guarantees for failure, as most people give up on them before the end of January. You start the month off, oh, I'm going to. And then shortly after, forget about it. Resolutions have another problem, and that is they tend to be superficial about losing weight and working out. The outside, the form. Real change is transformation. And as Wayne said, transformation goes beyond your form, beyond what you look like, beyond what you have or don't have. Resolutions can't do that because they don't go deep enough. Do you really want to lose weight, be more active, be healthier, improve finances, have healthier relationships? Then you must transform the beliefs and behaviors that underlie the conditions you're unhappy with. If you want things to change, transformation is your key, resolutions are not. So I encourage you to think transformation, not resolution. Read more about transformation in my blog on glenalex.com. Feel free to like, subscribe, and share. And until next time, be well.
Your health matters, set your mind.